everyone, Bulavanaka, week 15 of Clarkie's Corner, where we chat about the Shop and Save Super Rugby Pacific and the Swire shipping Fijian Drua. And after 8 games on the road and 5 games on Fiji soil, it all comes down to this Saturday in Suva when the Drua hosts the Queensland Reds in the final round of the regular season. Now, I'm sure you've had the calculator out. I'm sure you know all of the different scenarios. Both teams need a win to stay in the quarterfinal race. So what a finish we're in for. And to discuss that and lots more, our special guest is former Flying Fijians Prop Campese Ma'afu. Bula Campese, how are you and where are you?
Bulavanaka, Clarkie. Thanks for having me on the show. Currently living life in sunny Sydney, based in Australia.
Fair enough. George David Campese Ma'afu. Have you met the other David Campese, and what's the story behind that fantastic name?
Mate, I have met Campo. He's a legend of a bloke, you know, has a lot to say in and around the game of rugby, and I love his attitude. Behind the name, mate, back in 1984 when I was born, David Campese was the big star at the time during the Grand Slam, and Dad and Granddad decided to name me after him in the hopes that I'll become a big superstar on the wing one day for the Wallabies. But unfortunately, it didn't end up that way, you know.
Not quite the
Sometimes you
wing.
just exactly not quite the wing, but up front, you know, missing one of the number ones on my back. So from 11 to 1.
Well, it's been a pretty good ride, really, for you, though. 62 caps for Fiji, fourth on the all-time list behind the leader, Nicky Little, who has 71 caps. 2010 to 2019, fantastic stretch. 3 Rugby World Cups, and you've had more clubs than Tiger Woods. Cardiff, Nottingham, Provence, Northampton, Leicester, plus the Shute Shield clubs, East, and your favourite at the moment, West Harbour Rugby Football Club. You've got the hoodie on at the moment. And I'm going to talk about your career later because there's a lot to talk about. But first of all, what about the Fijian Drua? You must be enjoying watching them in Super Rugby Pacific.
Oh, mate, most definitely. I started watching them back in the NRC when they joined a few years back, and I just love the way everything they're about. You know, it's a great organization and what they've done in and around the local rugby and Fiji rugby. I think Drua is probably the best thing that's ever happened to the island in terms of rugby as well. You know, all the atmosphere and everything that they've built around the game to take it back to the island is great. You know, it's great for the game, great for the locals coming through the ranks, the young fellas. Uh, Everything about it, mate. Just absolutely loving the way they're playing at the moment. They're really bringing out the Fijian flair, and week in, week out, you know, competing with the best rugby players out there in New Zealand and Australia. I think it's the best thing that's ever happened. You know, great
And
for them.
Kevin, it's fantastic for the young players to have a pathway in the Pacific. What about young coaches like yourself? And I know you're doing Newington First 15, and I know you're doing most grades at West Harbour as well. But the Drua, is that something that you aspire to down the track as well, to coach the Fijian
Oh,
Drua?
mate, most definitely. I wish, to be honest, I wish the Drua came out just before my end of my career, and I would have loved to have played for them. But you know, if it means that the contribution now is now on the coaching panel, you know, I'd love to jump on board and share a bit of my expertise, you know, over the years through my career and give it back to the boys, you know, coming through the ranks with the Drua boys, you know, all the majority of them all local boys coming from non-professional backgrounds. I think that's a big thing that to get coaches involved, especially guys that have done it before, you know, ex-players, and it's good. A lot of them have really put their hand up to come forward and help out any way they can with the whole organization, and especially in the Super Rugby as well. It'd be good for someone like myself too to get some experience and exposure in and around it.
Now, my spies tell me that when the Drua were based in Sydney leading up to the Waratahs game a couple of weeks ago, you were seen out at training. What did you get out of that?
Yes, so I reached out to Mick Byrne and asked him to see if I could jump in and do a bit with my own coaching as well, with some personal development stuff, and jumped on board and uh, joined in on their unit session, which was pretty good. Yeah, it was a really good experience to see it from the outside, rather than a player or a actual coach that's actually a part of the whole thing. But yeah, just seeing everything that they've got in place. I love what they're doing down there with Greg Fleming and Brad Harris and even Glenn Jackson there. Mick Byrne has really taken the lead with it, and everything they're about. It's really heading in the right direction. And what other better way to do it than be a part of the coaching staff?
Now, what about the Battle of the Pacific in La Toca last weekend? 14 tries, 93 points. Sure, the defence wasn't always great, but it looks like it's going to be a great rivalry and a lot of fun to watch over the coming years. The Drua versus Moana.
Yeah, most definitely. It's always a battle when it's two Pacific teams. When two warriors, big giants of the game go head to head. It's more of a physical battle. Watching the game back, didn't see as many as hits as you'd expect, but a lot of flair in the game, and it's really good to see entertaining rugby like that, and it just shows the difference between the two teams battling it out with two local teams from the Southern Hemisphere, going head to head of Pacific Heritage. It's awesome to see, and it's at the end of the day, they come together as brothers at the end of the game, and they really enjoy a good carver bowl over it, and yeah, it's great to see. It's great to see.
Yeah, I was privileged enough to be invited along to a little bit of an after-match gathering, and both teams were loving each other's company. Yosefo Marci, he scored the first hat trick for the Drua in their short time in Super Rugby. He's on top of the all-time scoring list for the new club with 9. Gee, he's had an impressive year, hasn't he?
Mate, Stefan Marci has come out flying. He's really shown his true colours in terms of playing good rugby and sevens. Coming through the sevens and all that. Marci has really put his best foot forward, and I think he's really nailed everything in and around finishing the game, finishing the flair that the structure of Fiji Drua have in place. And he's really come out of his shell, and he's really starting to mature as a rugby player at the professional level. So Stefan Massi is a long way to go. He's coming really strong, and it's good to see him, really perform well.
The difference from last year to this year is quite incredible as far as some of the players are concerned and their performances. So many have improved, but who else, apart from Marcy, in the Drua has impressed you?
Uh, Most impressive for me, Clarkie, is a young fella. So back in the 2019 World Cup with the Flying Fijians preparations, I had a chat with our forwards coach at the time, Neil Barnes, and he said to me, "Listen, I got a young fella coming from the under 20s. He literally just jumped off the plane in Nandi from the under 20s World Cup, jumped on a bus and joined us in camp over in Suva. A young hooker by the name Tevita Ikanaveri. And I remember doing an interview back at that time saying Fiji Live with the Fiji Live, I think it was. They asked me, is there any young fellas coming through that you think we should keep an eye on? And I said Tevita Ikanaveri, the hooker for the under 20s. He's a kid to watch in the future. I guarantee you now he's going to be a star. He's going to be a star. Seeing him come out with the drawer and really mature into the captaincy role, mate, is really impressive. He's every week he's performing. He's really matured as a player as well. Young guy coming through the system. I think he's really um, led the team in a right direction as well. And for someone so young, to take a leadership role and really take control of it and steer the ship, I think is really impressive. Evita Ikanavere, mate, doing really well. Really well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you, and he's probably going to be one of the first picked for the Rugby World Cup this year, no doubt about that. How's the pack going? I mean, there's a bunch of young and some not so young props. Are you happy with the progress?
Yes, mate. I think they have a good mixture of young and mature. Really good mix there. I think it's the ship has been steered well with Darren Alangi, captaincy role. He comes with a lot of maturity as well, bringing into the pack. We have a mixture of Nasira Silla and Leone Rotusila. They've really come and they've applied their trade here in Sydney in the Shoot Shield. And I remember watching them saying to myself, they need to be a part of the Fijian setup. The Rikini Taveta, he's really come along well. The mixture of the pack is strong, especially up front. Young guys haven't had much exposure in overseas, playing any rugby overseas, but I can tell you right now, they're real coachable guys. Um, they understand, what's needed up front, which is the best part about it. Mesake Donge, I came through the ranks with Mesake Donge. He's really, really excelled and he's really taken control and leadership in the scrum as well, which is really, really impressive from my point of view. As he was just a shy little kid when he came on board with us, it's hard to get a word out of him. Whereas now, when I joined the Drua not a couple of weeks back and sitting down having a chat with him, he's really outspoken now, which is good to see. And I told him, look, you need to really, really steer the ship here with the young fellas coming through. And so he's done a real good job there. Greg Flemo has really brought him out and really brought the best out of him.
Well, Campese, there was no celebrating after the win last week because the Drua knew that they nearly blew it, up by 20 in the second half, in the bonus point position as well. And then somehow they managed to allow Moana back into it. And that's another valuable lesson learned, because you can take the foot off the gas, but you've got to play the full 80 this time of the year.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Especially in Lautoka, in front of your home fans. The team. Myself, I know that when you're playing in front of a full crowd like that, sometimes you can let the emotions take over and get a little bit overwhelmed. And we start really, really well, but like you said, when you take your foot off the gas, the car doesn't really excel as fast as you want it to be. And they really battled. They really battled at the back end of the game, but they did enough. They did enough. Whereas where we sort of needed to really, really keep the foot on the throat and really keep forward and keep going all the way and finish the game, finish well. Especially in big games like that when we chasing points and chasing final standings at the end of the competition. We really need to work hard in these areas and really excel and keep going forward.
Okay, well, let's run through the Week 14 results. Highlanders 35-30 over the Reds. Queensland had some calls go against them, no doubt about that. Rebels stumped the Force 52-14, the best performance by the Rebels all season. Drua 47-46 over the Moana. Crusaders 42-18 over the Waratahs. The Tars unable to break their long drought in Christchurch for, I think it's a decade or so now. Blues too good for the Canes, 36-25. And the top of the table Chiefs got the job done in Canberra, 31-21 over the Brumbies, who have plateaued somewhat, I have to say. But what impressed you, Campese?
Most definitely the Reds and Highlanders game. I watched that game live. Very impressive from the Reds. Started well, started strong, started fast. High tempo rugby. It's massive for the Drua to really counter that going into this week. It's a massive game on the line. We really need that win. Drua really needs that win. So looking at that game was very, very impressive. But then again, it's the same sort of thing with the Drua in the Moana game. They sort of took their foot off the throttle. Slowed down in the second half and let the Highlanders back in the game. Unfortunately, with a few injuries there in and around the pack and the back line, sort of affected them in some way or not. But I think that game was really impressive with the Highlanders sending off Aaron Smith on his last game at home. It was good for them to get the win and send off a true legend of the game in perfect style, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he is definitely a legend. Okay, we have one round to go in the regular season. The ladder, the Chiefs are on 54 points. They have locked up top spot and they'll host a quarterfinal in Hamilton. So they can rest players in Perth this week if they want to. The Crusaders 47, Blues 42, Brumbies 41. That's the top four. Then it's the Canes 37, the Tars 31. The top six are sorted. There are 5 teams vying for the last 2 spots. The Reds are on 24, the Highlanders 23, Force 22, Drua 21, Rebels 21. Moana have the dreaded wooden spoon again this year. So if we go through Week 15 games. Friday night, two crucial games for the Reds and the Drua's chances. Blues versus Highlanders in Auckland. Do you fancy the Blues at home? If they win, it'll help the Drua.
Yes, most definitely, mate. Me personally, I think the Blues have really performed well this year. They're on form. They're on top form, especially with a strong forward pack leading the way in terms of set piece, setting a good platform for their backs to really finish off some great flair tries in and around it. And then the Highlanders, they got a big game. Who knows? They're coming off the back of a great performance last week with the tale of two halves. They really need to change things around and maybe start faster, start stronger, and really excel in that way to sort of put the Blues off their game. But I'm kind of hoping the Blues can do a job here and set us up well for quarterfinals footy.
Well, then the Brumbies are at home in Canberra against the Rebels. The Brums need a win to stay in the top four and get a home quarterfinal. At one stage, they were looking like they were certainties to finish second, but now they're in a battle to finish fourth. If the Rebels lose, it'll also help the Drua, and that's where you're at this stage of the season. A lot of results have got to go your way.
Yes, 100%. With the Rebels at the moment, me personally, I think they're struggling to get their combination right, especially at the back end of the season with a lot of changes to the team week in, week out. I think the Brumbies will come home strong. They've had an injury with Alan Lalatoa come off last week with a calf injury, and then that may affect in terms of leadership and leading from the front. But fingers crossed, the Brumbies will do a job, and I think they'll get home quite comfortably.
Righto. And then the big one, the Drua versus the Reds in Suva. Both need a win. And if both the Highlanders and the Rebels do lose on Friday, the winner in Suva will be playing for finals footy. So no shortage of motivation there. Who'll win it?
Not too much. They'll win it, 100%. I'm back in the draw all the way, especially when you're playing in front of your home crowd, as I said before, especially in Suva. They have the massive crowd behind them. The fans are really going to get behind them. And like I said, when the boys start getting overwhelmed, it all comes into emotions, and it's a do or die game for us. And then to especially with the history lying in the background, with the second year in the competition and hopefully getting to play some quarterfinal footy in Super Rugby, I regard as probably the best club rugby competition in the world. It's going to be big for us. There's a lot of pressure on the boys, but at the same time, I think the boys have what it takes to counter it all and put their best foot forward and bring us home.
Now, at the time of this chat, the teams haven't been announced. The Reds have injury concerns, but there should be 3 or 4 Fijians in the Reds squad. So how does that play out? What would it be like for, Vunivalu and Penny Ravai, maybe up front,
Yep.
Eru,
Eru,
Dangunu?
yep.
Yeah.
Dangunu, yep. Oh,
Yeah.
mate, I think for them too, like playing against mates, they all know each other very, very well. All 4 of them were born and raised in Fiji as well, you see, and they all know each other. They're very familiar with the opposition. Plenty of mates, they get along well. I think when you play against your own, it's a different kettle of fish. You're up for a challenge, and you know what to expect. Coming from the island, Penny Ravai, regarded as the beast in Fiji rugby, is a guy that never shies away from a challenge, and he's going to be playing up against the Drua. He originally came from the Drua, you see. And Penny Ravai's got to be playing against the Drua, knowing that he's going to have a target on his head because the beast they don't die easily, So it'll be good. It'll be good experience for him as well. He's never played against his own kind before becoming a professional rugby. So I think they'll be up for the challenge. I think they'll be up for the challenge, and I also reckon they'll be overwhelmed with the crowd as well. They'll have their own family, sitting up in the stand, so they've got a lot to play for as well.
Soliasi Vunivalu news this week that the Reds and Australian Rugby have extended his contract for another 2 years. And personally, I like that because we haven't seen the best of him in the 50-man game. He scored 15 tries, mind you, but he just hasn't been at peak fitness. And, he's still young enough. And I think if he can get the body right, the hammies and whatever right, he could become one of the great Wallaby wingers like so many other Pacific Islanders have been in the past. A good
Yeah, mate,
signing.
like you said, yeah, great signing, for the Reds, great signing for Australia Rugby. I think they've done the right thing. They've put their faith in Sully to perform well, and it's good. It's good that he's re-signed. It gives him time to reflect on his performances and look forward to the future with Australian rugby. And like you said, if he could keep fit and he has a lot more to offer. He's a talented young man. He's a big man as well. He's still got a few years left in him. But I think if he keeps his body right, gets his body right, and gets his head right, I think he'll be a great signing for them and perform well for them in the upcoming tests. It'll be good.
Next up, week 15, it's the Canes and the Crusaders in Wellington. Crusaders safe in the top four. Important one for the Canes to try and force their way in. And all these Kiwi derbies, as you know, are always entertaining, and the fans are on a knife edge. Then the Waratahs take on Moana. Michael Hooper's last game for the Tars at home. It's hard to imagine the Tars without Hoops, isn't it? Because he's been around such a long time, and obviously you're Sydney-based, so you'll know him pretty well.
Yeah, mate, when you mention the Waratahs, the first name that pops up is Michael Hooper. It's going to be hard to see him without not being involved with the Waratahs next season. I think they're gonna really look to fill some really big shoes. Michael Hooper has really led from the front, and he's always done every week and every game, and even at test level as well. He's a great fella too. He's great for the great character and attitude that he has in the senior playing squad with the Waratahs, and he's really, really done a great job with leaving a great legacy for the next seven coming across. So it's hard. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be tough to see the Waratahs carry on, but it'd be a good challenge for them as well. Preparing for life without Michael Hooper, it means like they could develop the young guys coming through the ranks, whether they bring him from Australia or in Sydney or they bring him from overseas. At the end of the day, regardless, they still have some really big shoes to fill with Michael Hooper leaving the Waratahs.
Yeah, time is running out for Moana to break their drought this year as well. They have one more crack at it against the Waratahs, so we'll see what happens there. Now, the last game is in Perth. The Force need to beat the Chiefs to try to sneak into the top eight. It's going right down to the wire, this competition again this year, and that's the way it should be. There's 12 teams. Some people criticise the fact that 8 make it through to the finals footy, but I think from memory, we're always waiting on a couple of results in the last round of the regular season. So whether it's 4 or 6 or 8 in the playoffs, it comes right down to the last game, doesn't it?
That's it, 100%. With the Chiefs sitting comfortably at the top of the table, I don't think it'll be a good move to rest some players. I think you want to keep fielding your best team, in terms of trying to keep performing well and keep the body moving for the finals footy. Perth, the Force have struggled a little bit, but in terms of form, the forward pack have really put their foot, on the throttle as well, and they've really come out strong at the back end of the season as well, and setting up some good platforms there for the backs to do their thing. But for me, I think the Chiefs are just gonna slightly come home strong. They're gonna finish strong, and they'll really want to head into finals footy with a good win under their belt and build some confidence into that area.
And the Force are looking to keep their home record intact. They haven't lost in Perth this year. And as I said, a win will, at that stage, they'll know what's gone before them, and a win might be enough to get them into the top 8. So it's going to be a great final round in the Shop and Save Super Rugby Pacific. I'm looking forward to calling the action in Super with Sam Wykes and also Kara Karoy. Sam actually says hello, and he says he taught you everything you know.
White's a good friend of mine, mate. A good friend.
Okay, well,
the only thing he did teach me was how not to push in a scrum when he used to lock down in the second row behind me.
All right. We'll think about that and carry on in the conversation later. But it is a later kickoff this week in Super, by the way. It's 4:30 p.m. So fans, get in early, pre-purchase your tickets. And if you're going to get to the stadium to purchase tickets on the day, get there nice and early. The Drua need a huge crowd behind them. So that's the Drua and the Reds on Saturday in Suva. And our guest on Clarkie's Corner this week is Campese Ma'afu, Flying Fijians legend with over 60 test caps, 3 Rugby World Cups. Which one was your favourite World Cup? 2011, 2015, 2019?
Uh, Clarkie, for me, 2015 will have to go down as the best World Cup I've been involved in. Uh, Purely because we were well prepared. We John McKee came in with a plan, and that's by that time I joined the senior player squad. So the players and the coaching staff really gelled well. Preparing for it. We did a lot in Fiji, so the preparation and everything was perfect. And then running out with that first the opener for that World Cup was against England, and Twickenham in front of 90,000 plus fans watching the game. It was a massive thing for us with Fiji as well, with all our families and even the British Army who have a lot of Fijians involved in there. They were all down there, and it was just great to be a part of that squad that year. We had a lot of good players. We had big names overseas join the squad, and yeah, it's just that will go down as my best World Cup, and amongst that as well, the big part of it was the Fiji by that time. We made a promise to ourselves, with we in and around the squad that we weren't going to be just there to make up numbers. We have to make an improvement. We have to make a difference in that World Cup, and we really vied for that quarterfinal playoffs. We didn't get there in the end, but I think at the end of it, we changed a lot of things uh, in terms of set piece. I was involved in the scrummaging, and there was myself and a few other guys that really put our forward, uh, changed perceivance of Fiji rugby in terms of scrummaging and lineouts, and it started at that World Cup where we challenged the Tier One nations in the set piece, which got us on the front foot and really gave the world something to think about in terms of scrummaging and in Fiji. So we changed a lot of minds and turned a lot of heads, which was a massive achievement for us as a
Yep.
squad and as a country.
Looking forward to France later this year under the head coach Simon Rawalui. He's got an interesting and experienced coaching team around him. And that first game, Fiji and Wales, is going to be incredible. It's a tough pool, always is at the World Cup, but Fiji need to beat Wales or Australia, and then of course beat the other teams, the other two teams in the pool as well. But it's going to be interesting, and I can't wait, especially now with the Drua guys another year into their professional careers. They're going to be better, so it's going to be a solid squad.
Oh, most definitely. I think, like I said earlier, that the draw involved in the Super Rugby is going to be a massive hype for our guys. Coming into the squad. Simon Rowell is going to have a tough job as I see it. Like picking a big squad, and he's going to have to pick the best ones. And a lot of the draw guys have really put their hand up for selection, especially in and around the forwards as well. A lot of the guys from Europe, everyone, it's in the World Cup year, everyone puts their hands up to be available and get selected. Whereas that's why this year is going to be tough for them. Young guys as well, local guys, they've been pressured. Sorry, not pressured. They're under the scope as well. They've been looked at. So there's a lot of talk about selections. There's a lot of guys putting their um their foot forward for selections as well. But for me, I put faith in the coaches. Simon Rawalui, Jeremiah Bai, Graham Hughes. Even Glenn Jackson. Those guys they're pretty. I'm pretty confident that they'll pick the right team to compete at the World Rugby World Cup come 2023 in France. So it'll be good.
A few more quick ones, if you don't mind. Tell us about your test debut, Fiji versus Australia. I called that one, and you packed down in the front row against your brother, Campese Ma'afu. That must have been special, and I guess there was a little bit of sledging.
Oh, mate, special is the word. Special is the word. Celestia and I, we get along really, really well, massive achievement for our family as well. Like Celeste was coming off a back of a solid Super Rugby season with the Brumbies, and myself who just got called into to the Fiji squad with a current coach Joe Barricat, and mate, when we found out the night that we found out we were both starting and we were both going to pack down against each other. I think the sledging started right there and then over the phone, saying, I'm going to smash you and all this, as you do as siblings. Um, yeah, mum and dad was there. They said, no, I don't want to see any of that stuff, or I'll run on the field myself and give you both a slap. Celestia and I were a little bit worried about that stuff. So, yeah, no, very special night, especially not only for Fiji and Australia, but for the family as well.
Yeah.
Very
So
special.
so so the three brothers, you all qualified for Fiji because of your mum, Tonga because of your dad, and Australia because of where you lived and where you were brought up. For you, any regrets about opting for Fiji?
Oh, mate, no regrets at all. Fiji gave me the opportunity. My dad always told me, opportunity may only come once. So once you get an opportunity, you got to grab it with two hands and go all the way with it. So Fiji did approach me. I was at the time opting for Tonga. I already had was in talks with the coaching staff, management, and I was told through an email, like can you pay your tickets and come over to Tonga for a trial and then put yourself up. Everything you had to be done by yourself. Whereas uh, that's when I got the opportunity with Fiji. I got a phone call from Joe Barricat, ex-Waratah coach at the time. He called me up and it's a funny story because Joe Barricat thought, I was a Tongan through and through, and when he called me up, he said, mate, Campo, I just heard a story, mate. Someone just told me that your mother's a Fijian. And I said, yeah, that's right. And he couldn't believe it. He said, so she's Fijian born and bred? I said, yeah, Fijian born and bred. Has she got a Fijian passport? I said, mate, of course she does. And then I said to him, what's the what's going on, Joe? And he said to me, that's when he gave me the opportunity. He said, mate, how would you like to play for Fiji? And I said, oh, look, if the opportunity's there, I'll take it. Where do I have to trial and so and so? And he said, mate, no trial. No trial, mate. Come across. Let's go and do it. We need we need to start building a solid scrum. Set piece was, oh, mate. So I grabbed it with two arms and no regrets. I was actually happy to jump on board and see where it takes me. I didn't think 10 years later and all the experience overseas, with them as well. I never thought that'll ever happen in my life, but grateful the opportunity. I was blessed to join the Fiji squad and do what I had to do. And yeah, really lead. So it's good. It's good. No
Yeah.
regrets.
62 tests, fourth on the all-time list. Your other brother, Cookie, played for Tonga. So three brothers playing for three different countries. Gee, you must be very proud of that.
Mate, massive achievement for our family, especially, the Ma'afu family back in Tonga, well renowned for rugby, so we come from a long line of rugby playing family, and close cousins with the Vunipola family, and it was just massive for us, especially, dad really wanted us to make it to make it to the next level, and we really worked hard at it. So myself and my brothers, there was a lot of sledging at home, a lot of rugby on your knees in the backyard, smashing so and so, and for us it was just huge achievement for us. Really happy
Yeah.
with that.
And of
Yeah.
course, two front rows, a Cookie, an outside back as well. So obviously he missed out on most of the dessert.
Yeah, Cookie. So Celestia and I had all the food, and Cookie got the leftovers.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
stop it. Yeah.
so he got the good looks. He got the good genes, I'd say. He got 6'3", and then built like a good Nick, and Celestia and I went and built sideways. So funny, funny in that way.
Your favourite test?
Would have definitely have to be 2018 versus France in the autumn internationals. Went into that test match. A lot of sledging from the French in the media and stuff like that. A lot of our boys played for French clubs, and when it went into that test match, no one. We were definitely the underdogs. They had a full strength team out, and we ended up coming out with a win at the end of the game. And the first time I've ever heard the most quietest crowd. You know, we had I think 60,000 down there in Marseille, and it's the quietest crowd I've ever heard. You know, with so many people, you'd think that no one was even there watching. You know, but I think for me that was a huge test. You know, it was good for us as well leading into the 2019 World Cup. Uh, Goes down as one of my best, most favourable tests I've ever been involved with.
What about your professional career? Long stint in the UK and Europe. So give me one club. Which was the favourite?
Oh, mate, most definitely the Northampton Saints. I joined the Northampton Saints after a great season, great World Cup in 2015. Off the back of that, I was fortunate enough to get a contract over to Northampton Saints, and they really, I loved everything they were about. You know, real hard-working, grinding, forwards-orientated team. You know, and I loved everything about it. Really enjoyed my time there, and the family as well really enjoyed it, and especially getting there the season just after Celesi was just involved in the club. He'd spent 3 seasons there, and as soon as he left, I joined the following season. And yeah, I pretty much just picked up from where he left off, and the club was great. You know, it was just great. Nice little rugby town there in the Midlands in England. Um, yeah, best club to be involved with.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations on a great career and all the very best in your future coaching endeavours. Let's hope a senior coaching opportunity pops up for you somewhere along the line. Thank you for your time. Flying Fijian Campese Ma'afu. Good on you, mate.
Naka, nawa level Clarkie, Naka.
And that's about where we'll leave it for another week on Clarkie's Corner. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, Suva, Saturday, it's the Swire Shipping Fijian Drua up against the Queensland Reds, a game not to be missed, 4:30 kickoff local time. That's it for now. I'm Greg Clark. Bye for now. Molday.